Hello everybody, thank you very much for watching the previous video tutorials, because if you are watching this one, it's because you have seen the first two video tutorials. So in this one I would like to show you everything with the brush and keep done everything before to use the airbrush. I know a lot of you are scared about the airbrush at the end when you have done something with these results, but the truth is once time you understand the way or my own system to paint, you will get enough results to say this is my skill now and I would like to continue learning and get better and better and better results. So if you could paint something like that with your brush, you have to start with your airbrush. If you couldn't, don't worry, because with the airbrush you will fix a lot of tiny mistakes and you will get really awesome results, and then you will have real feedback to see your own improvement. So I don't want to say more because I would like to explain you about my painting. What happened about red color? I heard about legends about how you should paint this color. I have two ways to paint red color. The first one is start with the highlights, with the top, the ceiling, the most powerful and saturated red, and then paint going down with the light. So you have to paint the shadows. But because I thought that maybe it will be weird to you skip or break my own rules, but if you have seen all my video tutorials, you will see how I skip or break my own rules every time, because I'm giving you a lot of tools to improve. So my idea when I'm teaching you is give you a lot of tools to improve by yourself, to have a lot of ways to paint. So, and for that reason, I'm going to explain you this different way. You can start with a mid color, a bit darker, not like a mid color, but a bit darker, but never as a first shadow, because the idea will be have something like that, like a dark red, and then paint the next layers. How you have to paint the next lights? If you play with a white color, your result will be pink, and maybe it's not a good idea. And then if you are playing with yellow, maybe the result looks like orange, and maybe it's not the good result that you wanted. So I recommend you play with colors like skin tones, something like salmon, like dwarf skin, like sunny skin tone, stuff like that. So you have to play with colors with magenta, orange, or a bit of yellow inside. But if you are playing with skin tones, you will have more control on this red. This is my opinion, this is the way I use, and I'm going to give you this new tool. The most important, as always I explain you, it's paint the highlights and the edgings. And what happens when you have the edge on the down part? You have to paint an edge highlight on the bottom part. So if you play with the same color, the same light, maybe it will look weird because you have the same light up and down, and maybe it looks weird. So for that reason, I usually use this kind of trick. So if you create this dust or rust or mud on the bottom part, you can make this edging and get this result. Something easy. Just that. So and now, as for these chains, how you have to paint them? I know, because you will say with dry brush. Why not, Sergio? So you can paint with dry brush. I've painted with dry brush and the result is good. For sure you can paint with dry brush, but this is not my cup of tea, so you can't control it well. Or maybe in this one you can do it, but maybe in another one you can't. So for that reason I would like to explain you my own way to do it. So you have to paint like this, like you are watching, with these kind of circles. Keep the dark lining, the super thin or tiny dark lining between each one with the previous layer, with the first one, and then with the next one, another layer, paint in some places to get this non-metallic metal effect. If you see, I'm repainting just a bit, like 50% or 40% in some places. And if you made a mistake, don't worry about the mistakes. I always said the same. If in some moments you painted a mistake, with this new layer, this highlight, you will move the light close, super close to the dark lining. So the mistake you made it will work as a dark lining. So this is the reason why I said we don't make mistakes. We create information, and then if you don't like it, change it for a new one. Just that. So please remove your stress when you are painting models. This is your hobby, you have to enjoy. So please enjoy painting your own models, because this is the best way to improve. So you are watching now the non-metallic metal, and the idea to get this non-metallic metal is play with a shadow and light. So to get this contrast, I decide to add rust on the top and keep this dark area to continue working with this NMM. If I like to paint another light on the top, maybe we lose the effect. So for that reason, I've painted the rust on the top. And now I would like to show you how I paint the fur in that sculpture. This is something really difficult to understand because it's more like a philosophy. But in this one, you will understand perfectly because it's a model designed to paint. So it's tiny, but you will see every tuft by own self. So remember, my technique to paint fur, it's try to deconstruct everything on tiny tufts. So in this one, find every tuft, I think is easy. So you have to paint every tuft with the new color, the new layer, and keep this dark lining between some of them. You don't have to keep them between all of them because we look more mechanic, like an armor. So keep it in some of them and then try to split them with thin lines. I know. This part maybe is too weird to understand it. So you have to paint the next layer to define everything. Keep the dark lining between each one. And then, because in this one, in the sculpture, it's to me a bit big or thick, I wanted to split every tuft in at least 2 thin tufts or lines. This is the way to represent the fur. If you can't do it, don't worry. Try to paint just like a single tuft and just that. Because I know it's really tiny, and now when you are watching this video tutorial, maybe you will think that it's something like, yeah, I can do it. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it is so easy. And maybe then when you have your model on your desk, it's another tale. So remember, try to do it, and if you can't, just stop where you can, or try to represent the geometrical shape as I'm doing, like this tiny cylinders or spheres on every tuft, and then try to split only with the last layer. But more or less this is the way I work when I want to represent something like that. When you are painting these 2, 3, 4 layers, with the 3 or 4, you have the possibility to paint wherever you want. So with the first 2 layers, maybe it's the technical part, and you have to represent them where you should do it, to define them and to create the geometrical shape as you like. For example, I'm moving these lights close to the top, to the next dark lining, because I want it, and in some of them I move it to the center of the tuft, because I want it. Just that. So it's depend of the geometrical shape you want to represent. So for that reason, every time I said, think about that, and you can make jokes about be a cylinder, my friend. So this is the way, and now is the moment to be an artist. So after the 2 first layers, in that case, you can add the next 2 layers wherever you want, and for example, split the light or paint one thin line in some places to represent the hair, the fur. Okay, just that. So with this, it's more than enough. then with airbrush we'll fix it and we'll paint more details, information, colors, everything. And now I would like to explain you something different. I explain you how to paint red on the loincloth, and now I'm going to explain you on the helmet what happened with this helmet. The first tip I should give you is you have to invest a lot of time painting the face or the helmet or everything around the face, because it's the first part that everyone will see. So for that reason you have to paint it as better as you can. Then what you should do, define it. Define with the edge highlights and represent the geometrical shapes. Remember that in this one have like a cylinder on the top or forehead, and then have like a curve on the bottom on every side, on both sides. Maybe you are seeing like I'm trying to create scratches or stippling, but this is not my way to do it. I'm painting on that way because to me I'm more precise with the tip of my brush with these tiny touches than if I try to paint a thin line. So for that reason looks like tiny touches, but this is like, it's just my way to do it when I want to aim better. I have more precision or more control with my brush. If in some moments you feel that it's a bit you see stripes inside of that, is not uniform, just paint a new layer or with the next color, try to fix it, cover well, and get a uniform base coat. Just that. So, and this is what I'm doing now. Remember, this is the best way to do it if you want to work on that way. So you will get something red like this, and then if you want to add more light, you have to select some places to add more layers, because you can't paint everywhere with the next layers because you will lose the red color. So for that reason I'm going to move these next layers to the center, to the forehead, to the top, and maybe on both sides on the bottom. But if you add layers on the bottom, remember that never you will have the same light on the top than on the bottom, on down part. So if you paint this layer on that side as I'm painting, remember that you have to paint a new layer upper on the forehead, and you will fix the typical mistake that you can't understand where the light is coming. As you see. And for sure in that case you can add something lighter, cross your ceiling, cross the pure red color, because you have to do it. But if you paint in a tiny place, will work the 90% of the rest of this helmet as a red color, so will work perfectly. If you don't like it, remember the way to do it should be paint with airbrush or with your brush like a glaze or layer over that to get again the red that you love it, and then add more shadow on both sides or the places where you can do it. And now to finish this video tutorial and finish that model with my brush, I'm going to explain you a different kind of non-metallic metal. In that case, this dark area I've designed it. It's like a freehand I've painted, so doesn't exist. If you are trying to find it, your model doesn't exist. I've defined it. It's part of the volume from this sculpture, but I've decided to paint it. Just to explain you that freehand represents something like a freehand, so you don't have to think on a dragon firing every time, so you can create this kind of stuff. So it's more unique data model just for that, but it's like a joke, so don't worry, you don't have to paint that. But this is just to explain you something that I've seen that it's very, very common make mistakes, because you usually try to represent the non-metallic metal going to the highlights to pure white on this part in the front. So, and then you try to paint the edge highlights with pure white on the edging. So, and you try to find white colors whiter than the previous one. So it's a bit crazy, so nobody will see, only you. So for that reason I recommend you paint with this technique. Paint this light with mid-tone saturated and keep these dark tones around that to get light, and shadow, and get these reflections. And then represent the non-metallic metal on the edging. Only that. So you will have to represent the edge, paint the edgings again, but some of them, not all of them, and in some places, so tiny places, and you will see the result. So now the magic is coming. So if you are watching this video tutorial, you have seen that you can paint everything with your brush, and the result will be really nice without the airbrush. So please don't waste your time on glazing and losing your time with your brush, because you will paint a lot of time, a lot of hours, and you won't paint anything. So I recommend you following this, and if you get this with your brush, it's more than enough. So then, if you want something else, we'll do with airbrush. Chan chan chan. So paint the edgings again, as I'm showing you. And look how I touch the model with the tip of my brush, just with a low pressure, very tiny. Very sweet. And now again, another layer, but if you see, every time smaller. And for sure, this kind of highlights should be desaturated, because you are going to the pure white. And for sure, you can use pure white if you want, but just a touch. Hop. Just that. So I'm painting with capibases, always on that steps. So I don't want to use a super diluted painting, because you have to invest a lot of time, and to me doesn't work. So now, after this, the model is done. So I hope you have enjoyed watching this with my brush, because this is previous to paint with the airbrush. So I hope surprise you how improve the model when you are painting with airbrush on a 28mm, because I've designed this way my own system to paint 28mm, because I heard a lot of people that they can't believe that I do it, and this is how I do it. So if you like my results, this is the way I paint them. Now with the base, this is just to relax. If you want to paint stones, this is the way I do, with this kind of stippling, trying to find edgings, represent the volume too, because always I love represent the volumes, and move the light wherever I want. So just that. So if you want to add new layers, remember, think about the volume, something easy, and paint there. Just that. Nothing else. So this is the, I think that when you are painting stones, it's more natural if you paint with tiny holes, different colors, mousse, everything that you can imagine. So don't feel that you are making mistakes, because if you painted a place where you shouldn't paint with light, it's easy, just paint with a different color, for example green, to represent the mousse, and we'll be done, and we'll be fixed. So don't feel stressed, this is just to relax. And keeping the previous layer, as you see, to represent everything. So if you have painted like that, this is your result only with your brush. I think it's really great result, but then I'm going to give you something else. I'm going to paint with my airbrush. So I don't have anything to say. I hope you have enjoyed watching these video tutorials, and see you in the next one. So thank you very much for your huge support, and I hope to surprise you in the next one with the airbrush. Bye bye.